Welcome back. You're watching ET Insight. Succession planning is a tough job, and it's even tougher if the company is a family-run business fiercely competing with global corporations. Choosing a professional over the family is a courageous move, but need not necessarily end up being in the best interest of the company. So how does one strike the right balance? Gurucharan Das, noted author and former MD of P&G India, joins me from London to talk about that. Mr. Das, let me start by asking you, what do you think of the succession plan that unfolded in Infosys a few weeks ago? Do you think that more Indian companies will or should follow similar succession planning?
Ideally, if it was my company, I would have selected the very best person within the company. I would not have restricted to having a founder become the CEO. But then that's an ideal world. And I think they have lived within a certain tradition. Now when they run out of founders, they will have to face that. And I think that that's what they will do at the next stage.
But Mr. Das, what would you say are the advantages and disadvantages of picking a family member over, say, a professional?
The chances of a family member being outstanding are low. I mean, if you can choose from thousands of outstanding people from outside, why restrict yourself to 2 sons or nephews in a company? So it's just common sense that you should not restrict yourself to a family member. The rule is go for the best.
A lot of companies say that choosing between an external candidate and an internal candidate is perhaps the biggest challenge when it comes to succession planning. Do you think that's a valid argument? And if yes, how should companies deal with this problem?
Well, it's always better to have an inside candidate than an outside candidate. And that's why the burden is on succession planning. And that's why every manager must have his own successor ready. But when you have no choice, when you have failed, then you have to go outside. But you recognize that when you go outside, you have failed somewhere in your succession planning. You know, great companies actually have 3, 4, 5 candidates ready when the time comes to choose a CEO. I mean, I remember that in the case of General Electric, they really did have 5 people ready. And they knew that these 5 were so good that whichever one they appointed, 4 of them, the other 4, would leave and become CEOs of Fortune 100 companies, which is exactly what happened. And even if the others leave you, well, you've got the best.
A lot of family-run businesses start grooming their children early on to take on important jobs. But do you think grooming is a substitute for maybe a professional qualification which you'll need in this competitive world?
Well, yes. I mean, grooming is the right thing to do. Don't let the person assume when they are 22 that they're going to run the company one day.
Lessons that Indian business families should be learning from their global counterparts when it comes to succession planning, Mr. Das?
Global counterparts have enormous experience. You look at the best companies outside of India and they have huge experience in succession planning. I cited the example of General Electric, Procter & Gamble. These companies routinely have 3 to 5 people available for every job that becomes available. Now that's impressive. And the average company has to scrounge, hire people from outside, take risks. So the Indian companies will have to learn this, and they are actually. Indian companies are becoming competitive because they are giving professionals room.
Mr. Das, you're a close watcher of Indian business scene. So to your mind, do Indian business families tend to get succession planning right more often than wrong?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's reality, that very often succession planning will fail. The person you want in a job may leave you. The person you've trained may not finally measure up. And so you have to accept the fact that you made a mistake and you go try all over again. Don't just count on one horse, you know. Have lots of horses running in the race. And maybe if number one doesn't make it, number two will turn out to be the winner.
So what would you say are the do's and don'ts of a good succession plan?
Well, the do's of a good succession plan is to begin young, recruit people when they are young, create a passion in the organization for recruiting. Don't leave recruiting to the HR department. It should be the responsibility of every operating manager in the company to bring in the best into the company. Don't just sort of throw people and say deliver results. Help them, train them, and stretch them. People will do extraordinary things if you stretch them.
Thanks very much for that, Mr. Das. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of ET Insight. We'll be back next week, but until then, don't forget to write in with your feedback and suggestions. Thanks so much for watching.